Well, it's an exciting day in early June for Grant and myself. As you can see, our new Hoyts just came in the mail. So this afternoon, we went and got them set up at our local pro shop, and now we're just now hitting the practice range here this afternoon, trying to get them dialed in. So we went with two slightly different setups. I went with the single pin from Fuse, and Grant went with the 3-pin slider. So we figured while we were out here getting them shot in, getting them sighted in, we would take you through, one, how we do that with these adjustable type sights, but two, why we chose the options that we did, obviously with me with the single pin, but Grant with that 3-pin slider. So we're gonna get them shot in here on the 20-yard line and continue through the process. One thing I wanna preface before we start shooting is that we did already put on a tape that comes in the package. Now you can just use like any kind of piece of tape. That's what they say on the box to use, but I've shot these single pins before, and so I know that some of the tapes at the very beginning of the packet that are for slower speed bows are not going to fit. So I slapped one of those on my side and Grant's so that we have those nice hash marks to get our adjustments here. So we're going to get them sighted in at 20 and move on back until we've got our sight tape determined.
All right, so after shooting a few arrows, I'm shooting pretty consistent, about 2 inches to the right. And what's nice about these Fuse sights is you can micro adjust, and it says right on here, I'm gonna go counterclockwise if I'm gonna go to the right. So I'm gonna follow my arrow to the right. So I'm gonna go about 10 clicks and see where that gets me. All right, well, it looks like Max and I are pretty dialed in at 20. So we're gonna go back to 30 and see how we're at there. About 2.5 inches high. So now what I'm going to do is, because my 20-yard does not need to be adjusted vertically, I'm going to use the Allen wrenches to adjust my 30-yard pin. And what I'm going to do is follow the arrow again. So I'm going about 2.5 inches high. So I'm going to slightly move my 30-yard pin high and see where that gets me. All right, so what I like to do is just slightly loosen that Allen bolt, then use your thumb and just slightly slide it up, just like that, and tighten it back down.
So earlier when I said I put a test tape on Grant and I's bow, the reason I did that is because it's really important to be obviously accurate, and with these little horizontal hash marks that are on all the sight tapes, I'm able to look and record actual numbers for what my 20, 30, and 40-yard mark should be. Instead of just taking a pen and rough sketching it on there, I actually have really small hash marks that I've written down in my phone as the correct numbers, and that way I can really be precise when I get back and finally pick a sight tape. So I'm going to shoot 40 one more time. I think I've got the dial on it right now, but I'll shoot one more group, and then I'll move it back to 60 and then finish off shooting and then pick that sight tape. Well, Grant and I have got a few groups now through these bows. We're getting some markings on our tapes here, and hopefully are closing in on being able to pick that final sight tape. While we were standing around talking, we were talking about the differences between our sights and what we like about them. So far, super impressed with this. This is my second Fuse sight, but the pin's super bright. The adjustability is great, having that micro adjust and features like that. So loving it so far, and it's shooting great. But while we were kind of sitting here talking, we were just discussing the differences between our two sights and why I like what I like and why he likes what he likes. And so we figured it'd be a cool little thing to talk about for a second. The reason I kind of chose this single pin sight, this is my probably 4th or 5th year shooting a single pin sight, and it's solved a lot of issues for me. I've always struggled a little bit with target panic, and one of the things that I think I found a lot of root in some of that problem with is seeing all those pins in my housing. So I remember shooting a 5-pin sight and having all that going on in there, and then even a 3-pin sight and still having a little too much distraction for my liking. So then going to the single pin was a huge upgrade for me, and it cleared a lot of things up. I'm able to just draw, look through the housing, check my level, see one pin, and let it ride. So I'm liking it so far. I'm really liking this sight. You know, I've heard a lot of people try to steer away from a single pin sight, especially in the whitetail world, because they're a little bit intimidated or scared about having to make that adjustment on the fly. But for me, I've really never had an issue or a situation where it's cost me a deer. It's pretty normal habit for me to get in the tree. First thing I do usually if I'm hunting is draw my bow, and I always make it a habit to just set my pin on 25. I know that on the practice range, I'm at 25. If my pin's on 25, that at 15 yards, I'm just a little bit high, maybe an inch or inch and a half. And at 30, 35, it's only an inch and a half lower. So that margin of error is small enough for me. I've been in several situations where deer have been moving at even a pretty good pace. Like for example, this past year, Grant and I spotted the buck I shot off at 50 yards, and he closed the distance to just over 30, but I was able to range him the whole way. I was able to pick a spot I was gonna stop him. I was able to adjust my pin before he got there and make a great shot. So having that pin set on a stationary yardage is one method, or just being able to follow him as he comes and set that pin where I want it, exactly where I want it. They both work out for me, and they don't necessarily bother me. So the advantage of the single pin and having not a ton to focus on far outweighs any of the downfalls for me.
Yeah, so for me, I'm kind of the opposite of Max. I like to have my pin stationary. The biggest reason for that is I panic pretty bad when a deer is coming in and I have to fiddle with adjusting my sight or anything like that. It just allows me to be more comfortable and make a better shot when my 20, 30, and 40 yard pins are stationary. And really, I'm not going to shoot a deer over 40 yards, so that's perfect for me. But the reason I chose a slider is because, you know, when I practice, I like to stretch it out there to 50 and 60 yards, and that allows my 30 and 40 yard shots to become more comfortable. I also have a trip coming out west this year, and hopefully with a little bit of practice out at 50 and 60 yards, I'll be able to put a great shot on an elk. But for now, Max and I are going to shoot a few more groups and pick out a sight tape. Hopefully we'll get these sights dialed in for this upcoming season.
All right, well, I've got all my marks made on my tape here from 20 all the way back to 60 in 10-yard increments. That's not a step that you actually have to do with sighting in this single pin sight. You really only need your 20-yard mark and your 60, but I like to have all those 10-yard increments in between. That way I can verify that it's correct. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take my pin, my sight, move it all the way up to my 20-yard mark where the needle is exactly on 20. I'm going to lock the sight down. Then I'm going to take this tape off, my test tape. I'm going to pull it off and I'm going to compare it to all these tapes that come with the fuse sights. And in here there's going to be a perfect match that's going to line up, and all my marks are going to be the same, 20 all the way through 60. I'm going to take that tape and put it on to where the 20-yard on my new tape is exactly where I left my sight locked down at 20. Put it on there and I should be good to go. You always should take a few shots afterwards at various yardages just to verify, but in a perfect world I should be good to go. With Grant's 3-pin slider sight, it's a little bit different for the process, and I'm going to talk about it for a second while he's behind the camera. So for Grant's sight, after he gets his 20, 30, and 40-yard pins adjusted here and dialed in, he's going to take his sight and he's going to use his 40-yard pin, and he's going to take it and adjust his dial, and he's going to shoot his 40-yard pin at 20 yards. He's going to find where that is with his 40-yard pin at 20 yards. He's going to make a mark on his tape. Then he already has his 40-yard mark where he's been shooting it, so he's going to make sure he's got a hash mark at 40 now, so he's got 20 and 40. Then he's going to back up to 60, find where his 40-yard pin is hitting right at 60 and make a hash mark. We'll give him 3 marks. He's going to lock his pin at 40. Then he's going to pull his tape off and use that same book of tapes, and he's going to find the perfect match for his, put it on to where the 40-yard mark on that tape matches up where he left his 40-yard pin there, and he should be good to go. Overall, it's not a crazy difficult process, but after just a few shots, you want to make sure you're making really good shots, obviously, just like sighting in a gun. And then really, in all honesty, I won't always pick my sight tape the first day on the range, or really the first week on the range. I'll make these hash marks on my test tape and go back and shoot night after night, shoot 4 or 5 times just to verify, because you know sometimes you don't have the greatest night and you never want to finalize your sight tape off that. So I'll shoot a few more, but I should be pretty good to go to be able to pick my sight tape, put it on, and start shooting again.
Kyle? 10. Roy, help 12. Nice shot.
Are you thirsty or what?
Parched is an understatement.
Hey,
That was huge.
so you're not doing great?
Hey, no, we're not. We're dying. Like it's borderline. It's hot. Sweat. Big sweat.
You thirsty?
Oh yeah. Thank you, Grant. I'm Rod Ludwig. I came out here for a videography and photography internship as well as production from Maryland. So I started on the staff last year. The internship opportunity presented itself and I jumped at the chance. It's something I've wanted to do my whole life and something not many people get to do. It's a once in a lifetime experience. What we're doing now, shooting a 122-yard shot at a moose. Well, you'll have that on them big jobs.
My name is Ethan Stubbs. I am a 2021 intern. I am from Luena, Iowa, and I've always wanted to do this, like Bryce said, and you know, the opportunity presented itself. And right now we're at the summer meeting. It's been an awesome time getting to meet all the guys, come from near and far, Maryland, New York, so it's been a blessing in disguise coming here and meeting new people and friends for life. So couldn't be more happy to be a part of this team and happier to join Midwest Whitetail. I don't have any more arrows. We're done. This is a pretty cool angle, right?
Oh. All right, send it. That was a lot going on.
Well, that's going to wrap up another year of the Midwest Whitetail meeting. This is something that, you know, as the guys in the office, we look forward to having every season. Unfortunately, we're not able to do it in 2020, but we've had the guys down, got to have an awesome bow shoot, and then all of our partners came today, got to talk about the new products coming out for this season, and just overall, great environment to catch up with everybody on the regional teams. You know, big shout out to all of those guys, because without them, Midwest Whitetail is not what it is at all. So it's been fun to catch up, and we're looking forward to the coming weeks. I mean, obviously now we're already in the middle of June, and you know, Drake's back in town from Spring Thunder. He's getting his farms ready. You know, all of a sudden we're looking ahead, and velvet season's not too far away. So I know Mike and Jared already got cameras out. I just was fortunate enough to pick up a new piece that I'm excited to go and figure out, and you know, before we know it, opening day will be here. So big things on the horizon. Hope you guys enjoyed it, and we'll see you guys next week.